Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special, small, tiny episode of Shaded Corner, where we're going to have these interspliced probably because there'll be updates, and then if we come up with other things, things are going on in the world, specifically in one region, and it is affecting one of us more so than others because she has ties. She is and has family over there. So, Poe, you're Ukrainian.
I am. Yes.
So, there's a lot of shit going around.
Yes.
People don't understand what's going on. They're only getting information from Facebook
And Western media, which is awful.
Western media, and then Putin himself.
Yeah.
So no one really knows what's going on. People are just having rumors. I was listening to a podcast when they were saying we don't even know a Ukrainian.
Yeah.
So this is going to be heavy on you.
Yep. No,
so
that's fine.
you're going to just tell the people what's going on, some history, what's going on over there because you still have family over there.
I do.
And you're in contact with them.
I am.
So you can share what's going on.
So I'm going to start off by saying I am Ukrainian. I was born in Kiev, Ukraine, which is all over the news because it's the capital of Ukraine.
Okay. I'm going to stop you right here.
Sure.
So, people have been fighting about this online.
Yes.
About the name.
Yes. So Kiev is how you say it in Ukrainian. Kiev is how you say it in Russian. However, a lot of Ukraine speaks Russian. They're Russian-speaking Ukrainians. My parents included. My parents were born and raised in Ukraine, and they were there when it was the Soviet Union. So a lot of Russian-speaking Ukrainians, predominantly in cities. So major cities like Kiev, like Odessa, they are a lot of the people there speak Russian. I, in fact, visited Ukraine about 4 or 5 years ago. 5 years ago now, I guess. And I spoke Russian the whole time. And everybody there speaks Russian. So you can pronounce it Kiev or Kyiv.
Right.
Either one is correct. I know some Ukrainians, and it's fair. Some Ukrainians are very sensitive about, like, they are not Russian speaking. They are Ukrainian speaking. And I understand it, especially right now.
Right.
However, Kyiv is how you say it in Ukrainian. Kiev is how you say it in Russian. Because the vowels are a little bit different.
Right.
And I can understand some Ukrainian. I can't understand a whole lot. But I can kind of follow a conversation in Ukrainian a little bit. And I'm fluent in Russian. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I was born in Kiev. Me and my family left in 1992. So very shortly after it became an official country. So I'm going to go through the history of Ukraine a little bit, and then I'll talk about, like, what's going on now, just because that's what makes sense to me. So Ukraine as a country has not really existed for very long. It was a part of the Ottoman Empire for a really long time until, like, the early 1900s, and then very, very briefly in, like, 1919, it was an independent country until the Soviet Union became a thing in 1920. It expanded. 1918 is when the Russian Revolution took place, but, like, around the 1920s was when Ukraine and a lot of other countries like Belarus, like Kazakhstan, they were all absorbed into the Soviet Union. So from about 1920 to 1991, Ukraine was part of the United Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR. It was not its own country. However, Ukrainian people or people from the Caucasus Mountain region, they're from the Caucasus, they've existed in that area for hundreds of years. And they have been persecuted quite a lot. There was a whole movement in the mid-1900s in Ukraine where, and this is oddly sad. This is not oddly sad. It's sad how history tends to repeat itself. So at some point there was a movement by the Soviet Union to move native Ukrainians and native people from the Caucasus region, take them out of Ukraine, put them in Russia, and then displace Russians and put them in Ukraine. So that's how you also get a lot of Russian-speaking Ukrainians, is because Stalin had like a theory that he wanted to mix people. So, yeah. So, oddly eerie is what I would call it. So, in, I want to say the late 80s, late 80s, Brezhnev, who was the leader of the Soviet Union, started to grant freedoms to countries before the Soviet Union collapsed. And that's when talks of an independent Ukrainian nation came. And Brezhnev actually gave Crimea to Ukraine as like a symbol. Then Khrushchev, in the early 90s, when the Soviet Union collapsed, allowed Ukraine to keep Crimea. Khrushchev said Brezhnev gave it to them, and Khrushchev was not going to change it. He wasn't going to take the Crimean area. He was going to leave that in the hands of Ukrainians. So, from 1991 on, Ukraine was an independent country. It has sovereignty. It has people, especially Western Ukraine, the part that's furthest away from the Russian border. Those people are very proud Ukrainians. They only speak Ukrainian. They have a very rich culture. Ukraine as a culture is extremely rich and beautiful. And so, getting to more modern times, in 2014, Putin's been president of Russia for over 21 years. President, I put in air quotes, because nobody's president for 21 years without doing some shady stuff. So, in 2014, Putin sent soldiers to Crimea and annexed it from Ukraine, basically putting Russian soldiers there and an army base in Crimea. Now, Crimea is a highly contested area because it's on the Black Sea. It's worth a lot of money. It has a lot of minerals. It is a very good port. And Ukraine is huge. It is the largest country in Europe. And because the territory is so big and it borders Russia, it's valuable territory. Particularly because Russia exports so much oil to Europe. And Russia does run pipelines through Ukraine. It ran pipelines forever. So in 2014, when that happened, Ukrainians, because essentially the government of Ukraine at that point allowed Russia to come in, and they just basically said you can annex Crimea, and native Ukrainians were extremely upset.
Right, because they were just doing that because Putin was going to do war, like have a war against them.
No,
right?
They were doing that because Ukrainian government was essentially a puppet government. It was a government that was placed there by Russians and voted in by Russians.
Okay.
So in 2016, the Ukrainian people overthrew the government illegally. They did a coup and they took the government illegally. However, it actually ended up being a good thing for Ukraine. They ran democratic elections in 2018. Vladimir Zelensky, who is still currently their president, won by a huge margin. Oh, also, I forgot to mention this. In 1991, when the Soviet Union was allowing countries to be independent, well, not allowing, but when they started allowing countries to become independent, they had votes from the people in those countries, and 92% of Ukrainians voted to become an independent state. They could have stayed as a territory of Russia, and they chose not to.
Right.
But yeah, so in 2016... in 2018, they ran independent elections. Vladimir Zelensky has been president since 2018 for 4 years. And he's very popular. Extremely popular.
Yep.
So, about 3 weeks ago, Putin had been already talking about annexing parts of Ukraine. He had already been speaking about it. NATO already knew about it. And this was not something new. Russia in general, for the past 10 years, 10, 15 years, has seen the potential for democracy in Ukraine as, like, not great for them.
Right.
Because they start demanding more money, in my opinion. Now, a lot of this is going to be a little bit opinionated by me because I feel very passionately about the topic, so please do your own research as well. I highly encourage it. So 3 weeks ago, NATO was informed of that, and they, as well as myself, like, when I first read the news, I'm like, oh, Putin's not going to go into Ukraine that much. He's been saying that for years. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks ago, he took two areas, Donetsk and Luhansk. Donetsk and Luhansk are right up against Russia's border, and Russian separatist groups have been there for a while. So Donetsk and Luhansk, he literally just walked into and they gave it to him. Mm-hmm. However, Vladimir Zelensky had said to the Russian government and to Putin and to NATO that he can't take Ukraine. He can't take the rest of it. He's not allowed to do that. He also is, like, very vehement that they can't be involved in their government, and right. He's also very vehement that they have no control over whether or not Ukraine joins NATO or the EU and all of that. Mm-hmm. So 14 days ago, they brought soldiers to the borders, and then they started bombing and shelling different parts of Ukraine. And they've been basically bombing and shelling them for 2 straight weeks, especially cities. They've bombed Kiev. They've bombed Mariupol, which is another really populated city. They've bombed power plants. They've bombed hospitals and schools, and basically committing war crimes. Like, these are war crimes. So they've written treaties and trust. Like, after World War II, there were very specific treaties written with the United Nations and NATO and all of that stuff, and the Declaration of Human Rights and, like, all these things. And there are very strict rules of warfare that are in place for a reason. It's to protect civilians. Right. And Putin is...
They're aiming specifically for these.
Yeah. Putin is blatantly committing war crimes. So yeah, that's essentially what's happening. And so a lot of this stems from the fact that Putin basically told his army, and he told the Russian people, and he basically told the world, oh, Ukraine wants us there. Ukraine is a poor place. They need help. And to shed some light on it, Ukraine was a third world country for a good portion of its existence. For the 30 years it existed, UNESCO did name it a third world country for 15 years. It only became a second world country fairly recently. They're poor, and their infrastructure was not great, especially before they gained a democratic government, a fully democratic government. So the country does have a lot of problems. It has a lot of issues. However, with the new democratic government, they were looking like they were getting better. Their economy was growing. They were getting more jobs. Zelensky did say he was going to apply for NATO status. They had wanted to enter the EU. Unfortunately, to enter NATO, you need a very large army and a very large air force, and they didn't quite have that yet. And to enter the EU, your money needs to be valuable, and they weren't quite there yet. So they never really got a chance to do that. So Putin just kind of waltzed in there expecting to not have a fight, and he's getting a fight, and a good one. Vladimir Zelensky is, in my opinion, an incredible leader. I mean, you don't often get a democratic leader that says, I'm staying in my country the entire time of fighting. I mean, it's unheard of. I mean, like, George Washington, I think, was one of the last ones that did something like that. Said, I'm declaring my country independent and I'm not leaving.
And again, Putin was putting it out there because he cut off all internet and everything. He was putting out his own media saying he had left.
I thought he'd been doing that for years.
Well, but specifically for this, he's been propagating all kinds of shit.
Yeah,
saying,
Zelensky left.
Zelensky left and
He's
abandoned
abandoned the
now
country.
Zelensky's going on like all kinds of streaming things, saying he's here, he's on the streets fighting with people.
He took a video from a hospital today.
He literally he told them, last thing I heard, he told them where he was
Oh yeah,
specifically. And
he
that they
took
can
a
come
video
for him,
of his exact location in Kiev, with him sitting at a desk. Like
and
he
told them to come for him. Or
He's
something.
like, please come see me. And he's been saying that the whole time. He's like, come talk to me. Come sit at a desk with me. Come have a conversation with me. I'm not hiding from you. I'm not leaving. I am here for a conversation. I want to talk about this. And for all it's worth, he's just trying to keep his country free and independent and democratic. And it's just.
And wasn't it? I remember 1994 they signed a treaty.
Yeah, they're
handing over their nuclear power.
They said that they wouldn't
Nuclear
get nuclear
weapons.
weapons. They said they wouldn't create their own nuclear weapons in exchange for a non-aggression pact with Russia.
And it was the president, and it was
Putin.
Putin, and then Bill Clinton signing the thing.
Yeah,
Now
as a arbitrator. Yeah,
it doesn't matter. His name's on there.
yeah.
So America is involved in this,
Yeah.
whether they want to be or not. Because
So is all of NATO, and all of Europe. I mean, it's.
yet no one's doing anything really.
I mean,
Here, have
Poland sent fighter jets yesterday. So
Yeah, they gave them fighter jets.
people are.
They didn't give them people.
No, and yeah,
My problem is with this
Yeah.
is everyone saying let's not do anything because it'll start World War III.
Yeah.
At what point
Aren't we already there?
is it like here's what I don't understand. How can someone start something and then we say, well, we can't do anything. Let them kill all these innocent children.
Because war is extremely complicated and complex, and
it's not complex and all. Sitting by watching innocent people being murdered. I don't understand that.
I feel this more than you understand.
I know, but I'm not talking to you.
I know.
I'm talking to the people who are listening to this, believing whatever they see out there. You have ignorant people talking about how, oh well, you know what? You don't know what's going on over there. Well, we do know what's going on over there. Personally, we know what's going on over there.
We know that they're bombing and shelling civilian territories. Like, if for nothing else, if you want to believe whatever you want to believe about, like, oh, the Putin had a good, like, whatever.
Yeah, I saw
there is no good reason. There is no good reason.
Someone posted something
to bomb civilians.
and I clicked on their link, and I was looking at the comments under there, and one of the comments was like, well, you don't really know. You don't know what Ukraine did to Putin to make him do that.
Yeah, because Ukraine is such a big, huge place with a bunch of poor people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No matter what it really boils down to is this is a man who is bombing and shelling innocent civilians.
Right.
You see pictures. You don't get a refugee crisis of 2 million people,
Which is the
largest refugee crisis in Europe to date. You don't get a refugee crisis like this if you're not attacking civilians, and he is attacking civilians. And they tried to do ceasefires. They're trying to get people out.
Well, the ceasefires aren't working. Because,
they're not working because
he still is firing.
Yeah, it's so messy. And I sit here and I say this with such a grain of salt. Like, at some point, I thought about this too. Russian people, like the general public in Russia, is going to suffer for this for years. Like he did this, and now companies are not doing any kind of business with Russia. Companies have and I get why they're doing that. I agree with it, but at the end of the day, you are going to hurt so many Russian people.
Well, yeah. Well,
poor Russian people
right.
that depend on it's the ruble is tanked. And the people in Russia are already poor, and
but he doesn't care.
He doesn't care, and he just keeps propaganding, and you can't protest. This is the thing that people that a lot of Americans don't understand.
Well, in America, you get away with anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not anything. But, like, in America, you can walk out in the street. You can say, fuck the president. Fuck everything he's doing. I'm going to go storm the White House. And nothing happens to you. Nothing happens to you. And people don't understand in another country, especially in Russia.
You just think about that.
You even post anything on Facebook and you get thrown in jail for 17 years. And not to mention the people that don't just end up getting thrown in jail, end up getting killed by paramilitary that exists in Russia. Like, you can't do the things you do here. And protesters are being arrested in Russia. There's a huge group of Russians that do not support this. Now, I don't believe in, like, Western media where they're like, oh, Russian people in general don't. We don't know that. That I don't know. But I do know that there are huge groups of Russians that do not support it and don't want it. Especially, I ask everybody that listens, I ask everybody in the world, please do not blame any Russian that you see in America. These people left Russia for a reason.
Right. You don't want to. It's just like any time. The Americans have a good way of
blaming whole groups of people for the actions of a few. Please do not blame any Russians, especially Russians in America, because Russians in America are in America for a reason.
Right.
They left Russia for a reason. So, and a huge reason for that is because of Putin, is because of their government, is because of the oppression that they see and they face. So I beg and I plead that most of all, please do not blame any Russians for this. This is not their fight. This isn't even Russian soldiers' fight because soldiers are abandoning tanks.
Yeah.
So it's just when I think about this, for me, it's just sad. You know, like, everything about this is sad. It's this kind of blatant warfare is not. Nobody wins. Nobody wins. Nope. Not the people that start the fight, not the people that are in the fight, not the people that they're fighting against. Nobody is winning this. It's going to be a ton of refugees that have no place to go. I read an article today, like, Poland is going to eventually have to stop taking refugees because they took so many.
Right, and the thing is, they have yet to build a camp.
Yeah, they don't have any refugee camps.
We're not taking them.
Well, no, they haven't had to build a camp because everyone in Poland has opened their houses to these. They've been standing at the train station holding up signs like, I can take
this
I have
many
one
people.
room person. These people can live with me.
Thank you to Poland, to Georgia, to Moldova. Like, all of those countries are opening their doors, and it's incredible, the kindness that they're showing people. And yes, there have been some unkind things that have happened, but we're not going to talk about that. But, like, the kindness of other countries right now is all that's getting them by, and it's so sad. I read an article today, like, we haven't taken any yet, but we're going to.
Yeah.
They're sending planes from Poland and Georgia and stuff like that are going to end up in the U.S. and we're taking refugees. And, like, 2 million refugees as of yesterday. 2 million. Like, that's 2 million people that have been driven out of their homes, out of their towns, out of their livelihood. And it's like those people. Then you have a bunch of 17-year-old soldiers. Like, Russian army is predominantly young males because they're conscripted. They have to go. So you got a bunch of 17-year-olds that are killing people that are going to be traumatized by it and already traumatized. And they didn't expect this. Like, we have text messages upon text messages from soldiers to their families that basically say, I didn't know that this was what I was signing up for. I didn't sign up to kill people. Some knew they were going to Ukraine, and they thought that they were going on, like, peaceful missions. That's what they were told. And no, people are throwing themselves in front of tanks and making Molotov cocktails. And, like, it's incredibly sad.
Right.
It's just... And every day I wake up and I try not to think about it, but it's on the news, and I'm scared for my mom's friends and my aunt and my cousins, and it's like, and it's scary, it's sad, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Nothing anybody can do about it.
Well,
we can send soldiers there, but at the end of the day,
there's the in my opinion, the nothing we can do about it is what we're doing now, which is nothing.
I mean, it's not nothing. It's not nothing. We're taking tactics that,
We've done more for less, in my opinion.
I mean, I don't know.
But
Again, war is messy and it's complicated, and at the end of the day, the world is just going to be poorer. Like, people that are complaining about gas prices, yeah, I get it. They're bad.
also, I'll take this point to interject. There's a meme going around where it says we get so many barrels of oil from Russia, and if we would have just kept the pipeline, we wouldn't have to worry about this. There's so many inaccuracies about it, and if you have a problem with the facts that I'm about to say, then you can go write me a letter and burn it, because the pipeline was never built. It had started construction. It never ran. So when it was shut down, there was no oil flowing. So at that point, you're wrong. United States is the biggest producer of oil, hands down. Whether or not Russia is second, we still make more than
Saudi
them.
Arabia's third, yeah.
So it doesn't even matter. Like that, everyone's been posting that meme or the picture or whatever we're calling
Yeah.
it, and it's 100% wrong. The pipeline was never pumping oil, so shutting it down never hurt us.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, messy. Oil companies are messy, too. And, I mean, I get it. Gas price. But this is what happens in war. This is what happens when there's a war. When there's a war and you stop doing business with other people and, like, global wars, this is what happens.
Right.
I mean, if things are going to get expensive. Things are going to get expensive, and that's the way that global wars work.
Right.
And the only people you can blame are the people that started the war, and that's Putin and the Russian government. Done. Done. And everything I've listened to, and when people ask, like, why did this start? Because it's hard. It's hard to understand. Like, why would you blanketly attack a country? There are logical things I can give you. I can give you that Russia runs pipelines through Ukraine, and they don't want to pay Ukraine to run them. I can tell you that Russia's scared of NATO, and they don't want NATO forts near Russian borders, and like having forts in Ukraine wouldn't have been good. I can tell you that. But at the end of the day, the only thing that I can tell you, and the only thing that makes sense in my mind, is that Putin is a dictator. He's a dictator and he is a tyrant. And for people to sit by and say, well, they should have negotiated, or they should have done this, or they should have done that. Yeah, people tried that with Adolf Hitler and Mussolini and Castro and all of that. The world has Hussein. The world has dealt with dictators before, and we know how dictators work. And Putin is a dictator. He is a dictator and a tyrant, and what he is doing is war crimes and atrocities. He is so close. Well, not so close. He's committing genocide. He's committing genocide. Not at the level of other genocides that have happened in the world, but this is a genocide. You're blanketly killing people and children.
Right.
Done.
There's no other reason why you'd aim missiles directly at a maternity ward or a children's hospital.
Yeah. And even if you tell me, oh, I wasn't aiming exactly for that, you're aiming close enough that you hit it. That's all that matters. You aiming close enough that you hit it. You're aiming for nuclear power plants. You are aiming for residential people. You are aiming for airports. We're done.
I don't know if you know this or not, but the last article I read is they took Chernobyl off the grid?
They took so there's a power grid near Chernobyl. It's not in Chernobyl where the nuclear accident happened, but there is a major power grid there, and they turned it off.
And the article I read is like some Ukrainian some specialist was like it can't be off the grid for like more than 10 days or something like that. Otherwise, it's going to start doing something. It's a lot of science.
I have to.
Talk,
I'm not 100% versed in that. I have to look into it.
Like
more,
whatever they're doing, they're just trying to ruin the country.
They've already. And this is also something that I think about constantly, and I'm very upset and very scared for. Is like Ukraine was just just starting to become prosperous, just
Well,
starting to
here-
fix their infrastructure. Now, what? Like
I-
even
I
when
have
this is over, it's going to take them years to get back.
It shouldn't, because this is ideally what's going to happen. It's going to be the same thing what happened to Germany. Russia's going to have to pay for everything to be fixed.
Russia's dead broke.
Well,
How are they going to pay?
Germany's been paying for their sins for quite some time.
They didn't have to pay at the end of World War II. That was a World War I thing, and they never ended up paying anything.
I'm not saying Germany paid. They're the biggest anti-Nazi place. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
So Russia is going to have to pay one way or another to fix everything.
Yeah.
That's only fair.
I know, but
People
it's,
need-
it's still
there
going to take years for Ukraine to recover. Years. Decades. I would even say. Like, they're not going to recover from this quickly. And it's just so sad. I'm sad for the place I was born in. I'm sad for my home country. And for the people. And I was talking to my dad, and this makes sense too. When you have a refugee crisis like this where 2 million, 3 million people are leaving, they're not all going to come back.
Right.
They're not all going to come back. So their population is definitely going to be down probably 1 million people. And that's a lot. That's a lot. Not to mention the amount of casualties that they're suffering.
Right.
Which is unknown numbers, which I'm sure is huge. So it's just so sad. Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No.
You're good. Again, we'll probably have updates and whatnot as we go with little snippets of episodes. But if you have any questions, if you have anything to write in, you can send it to shadedcornermedia@gmail.com or Instagram _corner. All right. Thank you, Poe, and goodbye, everybody.